Welcome to the Vol Report with Jacob Warren, brought to you by Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life better when you see better. I'll tell you more about them. But Jacob, we're on to Georgia.
Yep.
And boy, if somebody would get your attention quickly, I would think it would be Georgia. That's a pretty good football program.
It is, yeah, and it has been in the past and will be in the future, and we've played them plenty of times. Super excited to go and just have this opportunity at home for sure.
You mentioned at home.
Yeah.
How important is the home field advantage? I want to dive into that because you don't have to do it, but I'm going to chide some Tennessee fans on social media for selling their tickets. You can't do that. It's the Georgia game. But let's start with how important is a home field advantage in a rockin' Neyland Stadium?
Yeah, it's extremely important. I think that people hear it and people see it and take pride in being loud and all this stuff, but um, you don't quite understand and feel kind of the feeling that it is until you're out there actually on the field and you feel the way that it impacts the game. And not necessarily that anybody can actually do anything about what's happening on the field, but you just feel the energy and you feel just the presence of all the people, and those few people that sold their tickets or got rid of their tickets, like, cool. All right. Like, you're not going to notice that there's not, 50 people in the stands, whatever. But yeah, man, I would encourage everybody to come out and just be excited. I think that, um, I don't know, the people have been very supportive in the past, regardless of kind of what's been going on. Um, I don't think a game changes that, but just excited to see the people that do show up.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it. Jacob's not going to say, don't sell your tickets, especially don't sell them to a Georgia fan. If it's like your brother who's going to be donning orange, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, right. Whatever.
Jacob's not going to call it fans because he's too smart, but I'm not that smart, so I'll go ahead and do that. But yeah, don't sell your tickets to Georgia fans. Go to the game. This is a big game. I mean, you've beaten Alabama, you've beaten Florida. It would be awfully nice to notch a win against Georgia for your personal resume, Jacob.
Yeah, 100%. I think that me and the long snapper, Matty Slansky, we were talking, we're good buddies. We were talking the other day about how we pretty much beat every team, right? Like, that we've had an opportunity to play. There's teams in the SEC that I guess I haven't played yet, maybe. I don't know. Doesn't matter. We haven't beat Ole Miss. I know that, but we've pretty much played every team, right?
I think you played everybody, but you haven't played Texas and Oklahoma, obviously, because they're coming in.
Right, but have beaten a majority of the teams that you want to beat in this league, and I think that Georgia is one of those that you really want to go out there and be able to say, yeah, we beat Georgia my senior year or whatever. Like, had a good team. They were number one, number two, whatever they are in the country, like undefeated, all this stuff. But end of the day, man, it's just another SEC game, right? You want to win all these just because they mean so much to to us and to the fans, and also has big implications on kind of the future of both teams, right? If we win the game, go to a better bowl game. We win the game, puts them in position to maybe I don't know how that changes things with them for their future and the playoffs and bowl games and everything like that too. So definitely playing for a lot on both sides, and I'm excited to just go and do it.
Well, and you've already left your group, your class, and the one after it has left the program in better shape than when you found it.
Mhm.
But a win against Georgia would further that, I think, in recruiting. If you were a recruit, how would you look at that?
I don't know. When I was a recruit, it would have a very different story. I don't know. I didn't really pay too much attention, obviously, because just the state of the program whenever I was being recruited to Tennessee was not where it is now, right? You said we made it better than kind of what we found it. But yeah, I do think as a recruit at this game, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of guys, on our sideline or in our stands or whatever that are here on a visit for us that are also being recruited by them. And it'll be a big thing for them to see kind of how each team reacts and see who wins the game and kind of might sway one, here or there, whatever it may be. So yeah, I guess you do kind of have to think about things like that whenever you consider, the implications of a big game like this.
Yeah, I want to ask you about one guy that everybody's talking about. I do this because I struggle with his last name. It's Nico
Iamaleava.
Iamaleava. I'm getting better at it. How's that, Jacob?
Yeah, Molly Lava.
Yeah. I figure if it's him saying it,
Iamaleava.
then I can't get it wrong.
You can't. Just don't try to say it yourself. Just let him say it every time.
Hey, we'll call Bob Kessling and see if he needs that drop.
Lord, he probably does, but whatever. Shout out Bob.
we all do. Jacob, I want to ask you about him, and I also want to ask you about the not only the motivation, but what's left to play for. And there is a lot, even though it may not be a championship ring.
Sure.
Remind you that the Vol Report with Jacob Warren is brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life when you see better. I've had LASIK surgery, so I'm not wearing glasses, and I absolutely love it. I can see far and see close. It is incredibly awesome, but they are local doctors who will take care of you. Other places will just fly doctors in from everywhere. That's not Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, and Taylor and Haun. So before we get to Nico Iamaleava, let me ask you about the motivation now, because there's not an SEC East left to play for or a potential championship. What is the motivation for this football team?
I think truly just the pride of, man, just being a competitor, being someone that cares about, again, the future of this program and the present of the program. We've set the bar, I think, really high for ourselves and for this program. And, quite frankly, the goals that we had, we're not going to be able to reach. And I think that that's something that, as a player and just as a man, you kind of have to swallow and just be not okay with, but just kind of come to terms with. And now you have to kind of set your eyes on different goals and start to realize that, like you said, there is so much to play for, and not just bragging rights or whatever, but we want to go and have the best experience we can with this last season, or with my last season, but with the rest of the season, right? And in my head, the best way that to spend the rest of the season is winning every game left, and that's kind of where you have to set your mind is, how can we go and be the best that we can, finish the season the strongest, and hopefully be able to go to a really cool bowl and have that experience. But yeah, I think that you kind of just have to refocus and set your eyes on new goals that you make for yourself and for the team.
Before we get to a couple of questions about Nico, who's actually your road roommate, and I wasn't aware of that till just before we started recording. But you, when you look at Georgia, there's kind of been this churn over the past 3 or 4 years, especially defensively, where it feels like a plug and play thing. And I'm curious, when you look at their defense, what you see talent wise.
Like I said, they have done a great job recruiting. Speaking of recruiting the past few years, and you find that regardless of kind of who you're dealing with, or how much, what's the word, how much experience maybe a guy has. I think you can tell as you watch the film and stuff, and you see some of the backups or whatever playing. It looks a little bit different than the starting guys, but I mean that's across the board. That's pretty much any team you look at. But they do obviously a great job of recruiting, and so they have guys ready to step in, that are or will be just as good as the ones that are out there to start the game. So it's just a matter of you know, man, getting back to your fundamentals. Obviously, we're scholarship players too, and they bleed just like we bleed. So I'm just going out there and forgetting about the color of the helmet or the emblem on the helmet, and just going and doing your job is going to be the biggest thing for us in this one.
They've had coaching changes during this run. Um, Defensively, or do they do pretty much the same thing that you remember 3, 4 years ago, or have they changed much schematically?
Um, I think again, like a team like Alabama that I think we talked about. They have a base scheme that they play, and they usually stick to that and stay pretty consistent with what they do. But I think they are great coaches, right? They do a good job of playing to the strengths of their players, and if they have a guy that is really good at something and not necessarily amazing at something, then they might kind of cater towards that. But I feel like most programs is pretty much, hey, we have this style of defense that we play, um, and you kind of just have to roger up and fill that role. And the guy that can fill that role the best of a Mike linebacker that can play downhill but also play side to side, like whoever can do that the best is going to win that job. And yeah, you get a lot of consistency in kind of what you see and the looks that they present, and they just say, hey, we're going to do this, and we're going to play really fast and really physical. That's kind of their mo.
Do they remind you of anyone in their defensive approach?
A lot of the teams in the SEC kind of branch from the same style of defense. So you see teams like Florida and obviously Georgia and Alabama and a couple different schools I know around this league that play pretty similar styles of defense just because they're recruiting very similar types of players, right? They have similar body types at Mike linebacker and at safety and at strong end and weak end and nose tackle. So generally they have similar schemes, and like I said, they kind of tweak it depending on kind of who they're playing, obviously, but the personnel that they have.
So let me ask you about Nico, and because a lot of people wanted him to play earlier in the season, and it's nothing against Joe Milton. I think they just wanted to see it, and I'm curious. Your road roommates. That's hard to say. Road roommates with him.
Mhm.
Been your take on him throughout the season? I'm sure he wants to play. That may not be the best thing in the world considering his frame, but just your thoughts on how he's handled the season of being a backup because he hadn't been a backup in a long time.
Sure. Yeah, I think that um, I don't know. First of all, he's handled it well, as far as I can tell. Right. I think he knows. Regardless of how highly recruited he was or whatever people want to talk about, like the kid's, he's pretty humble, right? He's pretty understanding of kind of just the situation at hand, and I think he's taking the opportunity to learn as much as he can from Joe and from Coach Halsley and from even Gaston Moore, right? The third string quarterback that has been here for a few years now and kind of knows the system and kind of knows how things work. Nico's done a great job of kind of just listening and being ready whenever he's called on, obviously in practice and stuff. But just learning a lot. You can tell every day he's making mistakes, but he's learning and he's kind of picking things up. You mentioned his frame. Obviously, I was in a pretty similar boat myself. Right when I came to college, was just not physically ready to play, and I think as a player, that, and you kind of are aware that all right, it's going to take some time before I physically feel comfortable and feel ready to go out there and perform at the highest level. Man, not a doubt in my mind. Like that kid is extremely talented. Like he will be very good for this program. Um, and yeah, I think he knows that, and so he's kind of just trying to take it all in and absorb everything that he can, so he can go and be really, really confident going into next year's quarterback battle, right? With whoever they have, I'm sure it'll be a battle, and he'll have to earn his spot. But yeah, he's definitely getting to that point where he'll be ready.
Yeah, you've been skinny. I never have. So let me.
I'm not right now. You're saying you're calling me fat?
I think I'm average. I'll take average at
Yeah,
this point in my life because I used to be super fat. So when you're super fat, you'll take average, just
sure,
slightly. Yeah,
100%. It's all
I'm
about
all,
perspective.
yeah, I'm all about just slightly obese and not morbidly obese. So, do you know? Do you think Nico knows that this isn't the time for him because he needs to add weight because he has been incredibly slim? Do you think he's from the get go been open to that?
Yeah, I'm sure that I don't know if that's necessarily the way he thinks about it, right? But I know he knows that that's part of his game that he needs to be focusing on, and he has been focusing on. I definitely know since he's gotten here, he has put on weight, and he has looked bigger and looked more muscular. Like he's done a good job of kind of getting on the right track, and we'll continue to do that for the rest of the season, but also the whole off season. I'm sure we'll see a totally different guy, come next fall.
Well, and I think it would have been easy for Josh Heupel to come in and say, "Let's." And I was an advocate of this. I'll be
Mhm.
honest with you, to give Nico a couple of meaningful series earlier in the season, September, October, even. But that wasn't the case. How much do you think that helped Joe feel comfortable and confident in his role to grow? Because his play has improved throughout the year.
For sure. Yeah, I think Joe was a guy that we've seen in the past, right? Has had some hits and has tended to take some, has had to take a step back at sometimes and kind of humble himself and just be ready to go when he's called on. And I think that that has helped him in this situation where now he has an extreme amount of confidence that he's he is the guy and he's the one that everybody trusts and everybody you know needs to be out there and needs to be performing really well. And he's embraced the role of being the leader, right? And being the guy that, that Nico's trying to chase, right? Like he knows that. He knows that Nico's extremely talented. He knows that, he's chasing one in a spot every day. But those guys, you would never sense any type of animosity or anything like that. I think Joe has done an extremely good job of handling, this situation right now.
Well, let me ask you that. Are there any specific areas in which Joe Milton has made Nico Iamaleava a better,
There
a
you
better? I have the pause like when he pronounces it to other people. I now
go.
have that pause. How has he made him a better player? You think, Joe DeNico?
Um, I think Nico, I'm not a quarterbacks coach, right? I'm just a guy out there watching. Um, but Nico's extremely smart, right? And he knows football and he knows coverages, but just a matter of just trusting himself, I think is hard for a young quarterback. And knowing like after a play, yeah, you can say, okay, I should have thrown it there, I should have done this, but Joe's been on him about look, like you're smart enough, like you know exactly what you need to be doing. Don't tell me after the play, like just do it. Like I just trust your gut and just go out there and do it. I've heard him multiple times, but just like trying to encourage him to just be super confident in the way he plays because Joe is extremely confident in the way he plays and confident in his abilities and knows he can get the job done. So I think that that's a big piece that you know Nico is confident, right? He knows he can do it, but just Joe's trying to relay that these guys got to believe you, man. They got to be out there and trust that you're going to let it rip whenever you're called upon and whenever you need to. And Joe's definitely not afraid to let it rip, and he'll throw that ball and he'll window shop and put it over top, whatever. But just being able to make every throw on the field is something that Nico, I think, will excel out in the future.
Yeah, should be interesting to watch. Uh, do you let your mind wander about what a win over? I believe, and it depends which ranking you go to, but I believe is the number one team in the nation. Do you let your mind wander into what that would mean as far as an exclamation point on your career and on this class? Do you let your mind wander there?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I wouldn't even say wonder. I think that that's somewhere that I like to be. Right. I like to think about things like that. I like to envision myself in that position of kind of the way we felt after Alabama last year, where I'm driving away from the stadium and just like thinking about it and just imagining. At a time I thought that it wasn't possible, or we just wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't have the chance to do it while I was here, or whatever. So I think this is another one of those statement exclamation mark games, like you said, is something to remember forever, and would be extremely huge for me personally, I guess, to end my career for sure, but also just for the program, like we talked about earlier, just setting our eyes on new goals and just trying to win the rest of them.
Great stuff. The Vol Report with Jacob Warren is brought to you by Doctors Campbell, Cunningham, Taylor, and Haun. Enjoy life better when you see better. He's Jacob Warren. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.